Here's a single, continuous, sleep-friendly script for Season 1, The Fall of Han and the Rise of Heroes. It flows in 10 evenly paced parts, without hard breaks, ready for text-to-speech. I announce each part softly, so you can still place chapter markers if you want. Part 1. Lanterns fading over Han. You arrive at dusk, along corridors of carved wood, where silk lanterns hold the last of the day. The eastern Han breathes in shallow, careful ways. In Luoyang, officials bow so low they can read the grain of the floor. Eunuchs glide like shadows with soft voices and quicker hands. Petitions pile up like fallen leaves. Outside the walls, fields remember flood and drought, and granaries echo more than they feed. Soldiers are paid with promises, farmers with nothing at all. You stand by a night stall and watch a clerk haggle over the price of justice, and the price seems to change with each breath. Somewhere, a bell counts the hour and sounds as if it has been carrying the same hour for years. The empire is not yet broken. It is simply counting backward from 10, and everyone hears the numbers in a different key. Part 2. The court behind the screen. Emperor Ling sits small beneath a great canopy. The canopy does most of the work. The 10 attendants move like a second government stitched into the first. They own the front door to every favor and the back stair of every punishment. A general speaks and discovers the room prefers a whisper. A good decree enters one side of the palace and leaves the other with its pockets turned out. When the treasury complains, new taxes are invented to teach it better manners. In the alleys, a vendor sells lucky charms inked on yellow paper, and customers buy 2 at a time, one for fever, one for fate. The air smells of incense, lacquer, and a quiet that has learned to be afraid. Part 3. The Way of Great Peace. Far to the north, under a persimmon tree in Jizhu, Zhang Jiao to some, reads from a healing scripture and mixes herbs with river water. His brothers, Zhang Bao and Zhuge Liang, stand nearby with the patience of men who have already carried half of what they were born to carry. A child sleeps after fever, a mother weeps. A thank you the state has forgotten how to hear. Yellow headscarves appear at elbows, then foreheads, then banners. Hope changes key into anger. The way of great peace becomes the yellow turban movement. Not a single army, but a festival of grievances. Some careful, some cruel, most hungry. Drums are tested and found persuasive. Maps wake up wrong in the capital, and clerks blame their ink. Part 4. The Peach Garden and the Bull. In a market town called Zhuo, you notice 3 men before they notice each other. Liu Bei sells straw mats and sandals from a plain stall. Slender and steady, a scholar's knot in his hair, and a green sash binding a robe that has done more work than it admits. Guan Yu stands apart, very tall, long black beard combed to his chest, a deep calm in his gaze, a green robe layered over armor, as if serenity could wear steel. Zhang Fei refuses stillness, a broad-shouldered butcher with eyebrows like impatient brushstrokes and a laugh that arrives as quickly as his temper. A recruitment notice flaps on a post. That evening, Among peach trees at golden hour, the three share a bowl of wine and a vow, not the same day of birth, but the same day of death, to aid the Han, to carry a blade without dropping a soul. Wind moves the blossoms. The world, listening, makes a small correction. Part 5. First banners, first steps. A troop gathers under a banner stitched by candlelight. More resolve than silk, the first skirmishes are mostly mistakes. Cookfire smoke, mistaken for arson. A rumor mistaken for a trumpet. Zhang Fei charges like a door that forgot it was meant to open slowly. Guan Yu moves like a river that remembers every stone. Liu Bei stands where fear would like to widen a crack and does not let it widen when a frightened youth is brought in with a rope around his wrists. Liu Bei kneels and loosens the knot, sending him home with a sentence softer than law and firmer than pity. Far south, Sun Jian, the tiger of Jiangdong, tests oars against a morning river, a tiger emblem, bright on lamellar. His boat points where his will points. In the north, Cao Cao inspects ranks in a dark command robe over scale armor, opening a granary with one hand and closing the door on theft with the other. He punishes a stealing soldier, and then the hunger that taught the theft, discipline measured to the grain. Part 6. The Tyrant in Waiting. Into Luoyang rides Dongzhuo with frontier cavalry trained by thirst and sand. He comes promising protection and gives the city a different danger with better manners. He weighs an emperor like a merchant weighs a horse, and when he decides the weight is wrong, he changes the emperor and keeps the scale. A tall, hawk-eyed warrior stands at his shoulder. Lu Bu, bright lamellar, like fresh lacquer, a presence that turns space into attention. The courtiers learn a new gravity. Echoes change direction in the halls. Dongzhuo speaks of moving the capital west to Chang'an, away from a danger that looks a great deal like his own shadow. The order is not yet given, but the city begins to smell faintly of kindling. Part 7. Lords under one banner. In the east and north, Yuan Shao drafts a letter that is not so much a letter as a trumpet. He calls lords to punish the traitor. Seals strike wax. Messengers eat miles. Gongsun, sand from the north, brings white armor and cold discipline. Sun Jian answers from the riverlands, a smile sharpened by opportunity. Cao Cao arrives and says little, seeing much. Liu Bei, with Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, brings a modest banner stitched from big promises. 10 pavilions rise in a plain. 20 egos take turns with the wind, and 100 banners try to point the same direction at once. Plans are drawn. Sishui Gate first, then a narrow pass squeezed between stone jaws. Hulao, the tiger prison. Someone warms spiced wine against doubt. When Dongzhuo's vanguard sends a fierce champion to test them, camp confidence trembles. Guan Yu steps forward, calm as a law, and rides out. When he returns, the steam still rises from the jug, and no one argues with steam. Part 8. The Pass and the Promise. Hulao sits where mountains have learned to refuse armies. Arrow slits stare like patient eyes. Lu Bu rides down from the gate on red hare, that red horse whose hooves remember speed before a rider thinks of it. He issues a formal challenge, and the hills return his voice unbroken. Many test him. The ground collects their lessons in dust. Zhang Fei can wait no longer. He surges forward, a serpent spear turning air into lines. Liu Bei meets him with angles that make economy look fierce. Guan Yu joins, the green dragon blade a curve that writes its own grammar. Their weapons sing without, drawing blood you can hear. When Liu Bei enters last, the three move as if some better teacher had rehearsed them. Storm, river, and timekeeper. For a breath, they press Liu Bei into a shape that resembles defeat. A horn calls from the gate. Red hair climbs the road. Like a thought that refuses to be cornered, Liu Bei withdraws, not conquered, not content, but thinking. And that is sometimes the sharpest weapon on a field. Part 9. A City of Walking Fire. Dongzhuo studies the coalition and chooses to win by not standing where their weapons point. He orders Luoyang put to the torch and marches the court west to Chang'an. The emperor, a title strapped to a moving carriage. Fire walks the streets. Roofs settle into embers. Archives sigh into smoke. Ledgers release their numbers to the night. Soldiers form bucket lines. Townsfolk pass bundles hand to hand. Kindness, in small, fast pieces, outpaces panic. When the coalition enters, the taste is charcoal. The lords who shouted together begin to murmur apart. Sun Jian searches the ruins with a riverman's patience and finds the kind of treasure ruins like to keep. Others argue where such symbols should sleep. Promises remember their escape routes. Cao Cao marks the moment in his private ledger as weather, not scandal. Liu Bei tightens his bundle. Guan Yu oils his blade with a ritual that quiets air. Zhang Fei invents new names for men who forget what their mouths swore. Part 10. The iron thread begins. Chang'an grows heavy under Dongzhuo's hand. Taxes sharpen. Fear learns new roots. Near him stands Liu Bei, like a thunderhead that has not yet chosen where to throw its light. Somewhere in a minister's house, a careful plan begins to knot itself around beauty and pride, but that belongs to another night. For now, the coalition loosens into separate roads. Gongsun Zan rides north to his own winds. Sun Jian returns to Jiangdong to bank fires and count advantages. Yuan Shao and Yuan Shu polish cousins and grudges. Cao Cao goes home to build order, the way a blacksmith builds a blade. Heat, strike, quench, repeat, until the north begins to sound like marching in law. You travel with Liu Bei and his brothers through villages that cannot afford to stay broken, so they do not. A widow replaces her threshold with help from 3 soldiers who will eat at her table and pretend the soup is thicker than it is. Children practice a game where one side plays rebels and the other plays the 3 brothers. Everyone wants to roar first and bow last. One night, under oiled paper in slow rain, a soaked messenger kneels and offers a sealed dispatch. The wax bears urgency. The words describe what you already feel in the wind. The era is slipping its old name. You bank the brazier and listen to the camp grow quiet in circles. Outer guards, horses, the soft, ordinary sounds of men who have earned sleep. You remember blossoms falling in a peach garden and realize the vow was never to victory. It was to the work of holding a tired thing up a little longer while better carpenters are found. Dawn will lead to new wars, new councils. Here's a single, continuous, sleep-friendly script for Season 2, Heroes and Schemes. It flows through 10 even sections, softly titled so you can drop chapter markers. Calm tone, no sharp battle detail. Ready for text-to-speech. Part 1, The Iron Thread Tightens. Dawn spreads thin over the northern plain, and you hear order arriving one footstep at a time. Cao Cao walks the length of a drill field, where spears stand like reeds, and breath rises as one. He is lean, eyes clear, a dark command robe over scale armor, and his words fit the morning like a blade fits its scabbard. Discipline first, he says, but there is mercy in the rhythm. Open the granary before the thief is born. Laws appear not to frighten, but to frame, and the frame holds. Small lords fold into his banner, because it is easier to obey one man who knows what he wants than many who only want. Grain moves, roads harden, messengers no longer lose their way. A rumor grows into certainty. The North has found its center of gravity, and it is a man who sleeps short and plans long. Part 2, a gilded cage around a boy in a hall that remembers better emperors. Emperor Xian sits beneath a canopy whose tassels do more moving than he does. Cao Cao enters without hurry, bowing exactly as required, no more, no less. He speaks gently and removes dangers with a quiet hand. Factions melted, knives surrendered, titles reassigned, as if they had always been meant for different shoulders. The court breathes easier because someone is willingly holding the air for it, and then realizes breathing on one man's rhythm is a kind of leash. The carriage that carries the Son of Heaven now follows the road that Cao Cao chooses. The Emperor's edicts are written in Cao Cao's ink. Out beyond the walls, markets reopen. In the corridors, whispers change, from fear of chaos to fear of competence. Somewhere in the palace, a scribe writes, "All under heaven at peace," and does not add, "At whose pleasure?" Part 3, the tower with the wind at its back. In the east, Liu Bei rides red hair across a city wall and smiles at the clean sound his halberd makes when it turns air into lines. He is a warrior who has learned to live in the moment that comes just before the blow. Strategy feels like a room with too many chairs. Allies admire him until they must feed him. Then they reconsider. At Xiapi, the siege drums of Cao Cao and Liu Bei surround him like weather that has decided not to change. Water rises in the moat, and patience settles on the ladders. Inside, tempers fray. A subordinate locks a gate that used to open for the sake of friendship. On the White Gate Tower, Liu Bei looks out over a plain that no longer believes in his luck. When the city gives way, he is bound with care, a rare animal that must not be damaged before judgment. He asks for a second chance. Those who know what one chance cost the land keep their silence. The halberd that caught daylight so well will not catch it again. The wind moves on. Part 4, a road lined with conditions. Guan Yu stands before Cao Cao in a pavilion that smells of new lacquer and warmed wine. He has escorted 2 noble women, wives entrusted to him by Liu Bei, through danger. and the court admires the neatness of his duty. Cao Cao offers a seat, a gift, a horse that can burn distance. "Serve me," says the man who now serves the empire in the emperor's name. Guan Yu bows and speaks with a voice that does not bend. He will guard the ladies. He will fight when ordered. He will refuse promotion and reward until he knows where his sworn brother breathes. The conditions are strange enough to be honest, and Cao Cao, who recognizes iron even when it is polite, allows them. For a season, banners overlap. Guan Yu wears a borrowed seal and obeys orders that protect people he owes more than his life. When word comes that Liu Bei still lives, the bow to gratitude is deep but brief. Guan Yu returns the gifts, leaves a letter of thanks, and rides out beneath dawn without asking permission that would not be refused but would be recorded. Some say he crosses 5 passes and 6 guards. All agree he arrives exactly where he meant to. Part 5. Liu Bei Between Storms. You walk with Liu Bei through counties that cannot keep a governor for long. He holds office like a man holds a lantern in wind, moving so the flame can live. He repairs roads and returns seals he did not ask for. When Yuan Shu beckons with a promise that sounds like a trap softened by silk, Liu Bei steps close enough to see the teeth and stops short. When Yuan Shao sends kind words northward, they arrive wrapped around calculations. Liu Bei accepts help and returns it with interest whenever he is allowed. Zhang Fei keeps the loud parts of danger away by announcing himself at full volume. Guan Yu keeps danger away by noticing it before it wishes to be noticed. Between them, the banner stays upright. Nights are spent under borrowed roofs, mornings under borrowed clouds. People remember him, not for triumphs, but for the way he listens before he answers. Part 6. The cousins who polish their mirrors. In a fine tent with neat seams, Yuan Shao frowns at a map that refuses to obey family trees. He believes he was built for the center, but maps respect weight, not pedigree. To the south, Yuan Shu piles titles on himself, the way a child piles blankets. Warm for a while, then clumsy. Their quarrel pulls good soldiers sideways. You pass fields where last season's spears now hold scarecrows. Cao Cao watches the cousins with the look of a craftsman who sees a knot in wood and is already choosing the right plane. He keeps his armies working while others rehearse their grievances. When he moves, it is with grain, guides, and a destination. When others move, it is often with opinions and short rations. You understand why villages decide to welcome the man who knocks with bread. Part 7. A household in peril, a vow kept. Trouble that was pointed at a province finds a home in a single doorway. Liu Bei's family, carried like embers through earlier fires, is threatened by the shifting lines of allegiance around them. Messages arrive late or not at all. A local garrison forgets who it serves. Guan Yu takes the safer road for others and the harder one for himself. He stays near the ladies, accepts a chain of command that feeds them, and plants his blade between their litter and uncertainty. When the line finally changes color again and Liu Bei's banner appears on the horizon, the reunion is quiet. Heads bowed, shoulders unclench. A breath that had been held for months finally leaves the room. No trumpet plays, A vow has simply kept its shape under weather that would have bent a lesser metal. Part 8. Zhang Fei's Rough Kindness. There are towns that answer quickly to a steady voice, and towns that require a shout before they can hear themselves. Zhang Fei rides into one of the latter and finds a magistrate selling justice by the ladle. He plants his spear in the courtyard and announces a new price schedule. Honest measurements, honest punishments, honest chances. The first day is noise. The second day is lines, forming in better order. On the third day, farmers look up from their fields when hoofbeats pass and do not flinch. Zhang Fei is not the kind who explains himself in footnotes. He explains himself by making it safe to sleep. At night, by the brazier, he laughs too loud at a joke that was only somewhat funny and pretends not to see Liu Bei smiling at the way the town has begun to relax. Guan Yu, who notices everything, notices that he too is resting easier. Part 9. A thatched roof that listens. In a valley where mist curls around bamboo, like a thought that refuses to sharpen, someone mentions a reclusive scholar who measures the world with a feather fan and prefers the company of a small garden to the company of large men. Liu Bei hears the rumor and feels the way a thirsty man feels at the sound of a spring. The first visit finds a door politely closed by absence. The second finds the same door closed by meditation. On the third, the door opens and a young man with clear eyes and a smile that understands ambition without fearing it invites them in. The cottage is humble, but the map in his head is not. He speaks of the north and the south as if they were two hands of the same body, of rivers and choke points, of patience as a weapon sharper than hunger. He is called Zhuge Liang. You watch the feather fan make small weather in the room while large weather studies the hills outside. An agreement forms that is not an oath, yet feels older than one. If Liu Bei will carry virtue and wait together, the scholar will carry plans and seasons. Part 10. The sleeping dragon begins to stir. Dawn finds the thatch silvered and the paths rinsed clean. Zhuge Liang outlines, softly, a world in which three powers must learn to balance so that ordinary lives can continue between them. He speaks of ally and adversary as if the roles were hats a wind might switch, and yet his eyes are steady. Liu Bei hears not just victory, but stewardship, not just thrones, but roofs that do not leak. Guan Yu at ODS, at the sense in it. Zhang Fei nods at the courage it will require. In the distance, a courier's bell counts a new message. The season ahead will have councils and sudden marches, and a river will one day catch fire where cliffs, red as embers, look down. For now, the plan is a seed, and seeds do their best work under soil. You leave the cottage by a narrow path between winter cabbages. The air is cold enough to make each breath feel honest. Behind you, a feather fan turns once, twice, and stops, not because thought has ended, but because thought has chosen its shape. The road bends toward a battlefield that has not yet learned its name, and you bend with it, steady as a lantern in a practiced hand. Here's a single, continuous, sleep-friendly script for Season 3, Great Wars. It flows in 10 even movements, softly titled so you can place chapter markers. Calm tone, second person, no graphic battle detail, ready for text-to-speech. Part 1. Gathering storm at Guandu. You stand on a low ridge where autumn grass brushes your knees and the yellow river folds away like a sleeve. To the north, Yuan Shao's camp spreads like a city that forgot to build walls. Endless banners, oxen by the thousands, drums that make the air remember how to march. To the south, Cao Cao keeps a smaller shape, a hard knot of order tied close to itself. You listen to two kinds of confidence, one that counts soldiers and one that counts seconds. In Cao Cao's pavilion, maps lie quiet under stones. Counselors speak softly. Xun Yu, who turns mercy into policy, and Guojia, who can smell weather before clouds appear. Somewhere beyond the tents, a wind stirs the millet and chooses no side at all. Part 2. 100 banners, one uncertainty. Yuan Shao's tent glows with lamplight and certainty practiced in mirrors. Tianfeng counsels caution. Zhu traces supply lines with an ink-shining finger. Guotu argues for thunder now, patience later. The great lord frowns at advice that tastes like restraint. He has more men, more grain, more proud surnames. Surely the river of numbers will carry him where he wants to go. In Cao Cao's darker tent, an officer reports that a warehouse will last 18 days if the weather stays good. Someone else reminds the room that weather does not take orders. Cao Cao nods and sleeps sitting up for an hour, as if borrowing time on fair terms. Part 3. Shu Yu's Night Whisper. The moon lifts like a thin coin above Guandu. A lone rider leaves Yuan Shao's lines at a careful walk, then an urgent trot. Shu Yu, offended counselor, slides into Cao Cao's camp with dust still speaking at his boots. He bows, complains of slights and locked doors, and then lowers his voice into something useful. The grain of Wu Chao, the path to it, the watch that guards it, the pride that assumes no one would dare. Cao Cao listens, without moving his face. In the silence afterward, he looks not at the map, but through it, as if the paper were only a polite veil over the shape he already knows. Part 4. Wu Chao's Red Hush. Night becomes a corridor. You move with a chosen column along a riverbank where reeds keep their own counsel. No banners, no songs, only breath and hoof, and the small mechanical sounds of discipline. Shanglo rides near the front, posture like a door that fits its frame. At Wu Chao, sentries blink at a darkness that has learned to act like a friend. The first flame is small and persuasive. The second carries the first on its shoulders. By the time the alarm remembers how to be loud, roof beams are telling stars their best stories. Grain bursts into light like a harvest that chose the sky. In Yuan Shao's camp, drums wake late. Orders bump into one another like men in a narrow gate. The road back from surprise is always longer than the road to it. Part 5. Victory against the odds. Dawn shows the change. Smoke writing thin poems to the east. Panic bending neat lines into question marks. Cao Cao turns, fast as a hinge. and strikes where supply has already fallen asleep. Yan Liang and Wenchou are names the river will remember as it passes their quiet armor. The great host begins to learn subtraction. Yuan Shao's banners still number many, but numbers that have forgotten their food cannot add themselves into victory. When the dust settles at Guandu, the field lies with its face turned toward the south. Yuan Shao retreats toward the north he used to own without thinking, in tents that do not sleep anymore. Counselors count what the day has taken and find that it has also taken tomorrow. You watch Cao Cao stand in pale light, with eyes that have learned exactly how much mercy costs and choose to pay it when it buys order. Part 6. Southward to the Riverlands. The north quiets under new laws and repaired roads. The map tilts. Cao Cao points his army south toward Jingzhou, where old loyalties wear thin. Liu Bei fades like a lantern behind paper. After his passing, the great county becomes a conversation with too many voices. Liu Bei, who carries renown like a modest cloak, travels with farmers and children in tow, keeping pace with worry. Fields pour their people onto the road. Ox carts creak like old songs. In the press of parting, stories cross each other like threads. A general who lifts a child to safety. A rider who waits at a fork until strangers choose the safer path. You pass through Changban with rain in the reeds and rumors in the air, and you do not stay. By the time the river broadens and the ground begins to taste like salt, Liu Bei has reached Xiaku, where Lu Su, courteous as bamboo and just as useful, greets him in the name of Sun Quan. Part 7. A council beneath blue banners. You stand in a hall at Shaisong, where river light patterns the floor. Sun Quan sits with a calm that has learned to include steel. Chang Zhao and the elders advise accommodation with the north. Why break a ship against a tide? Zhuge Liang enters with a feather fan and a weather of his own. He speaks of Cao Cao's army as land-trained men on borrowed decks, of sickness that travels with crowded ships, of wind that refuses to be told what to do. He does not promise victory. He promises the chance to remain themselves. Lu Su nods, and the room slowly changes shape. Sun Quan draws his hand across the arm of his chair, as if measuring grain, and says quietly that Jiangdong will not bow. The words land like anchors. The river approves with a small lift at the pilings. Part 8. Zhou Yu's chessboard. Command passes to Zhou Yu, whose smile keeps secrets and whose plans keep promises. Across the water, Cao Cao chains ships together to quiet the river beneath unfamiliar feet. Here, training repeats until the oars learn to breathe with one set of lungs. Huang Gai, weathered as rope, proposes a bitter medicine, an offered surrender. That is not what it claims, and a signal that will reach the enemy only if everyone believes a little too much. Pain is accepted in public like tax, calculated, purposeful, without spectacle. Messages travel by gull and rumor. On the night before the wager, Zhou Yu watches the wind and hears it say almost, "Not yet." Part 9. Fire over Red Cliffs. The river turns a patient face toward the east. At last the eastern wind rises, a steady hand along the water. Huang Gai's ships set out under banners that mean submission. hulls hiding bundled flame and intent. The distance closes with the quiet of good acting. Then canvas brightens. Sparks find rope and pitch. A row of anchored giants tries to remember how to move and cannot. The night becomes a lesson written in orange on black. From the bluffs, Zhou Yu's signal fans the dark. From the decks, men row with strokes that will live in their shoulders forever. Across the way, Cao Cao orders retreat with the speed of a mind that has never been lazy. The chain that bound his fleet now binds his choices, and the river, respectful as ever, escorts him away. Part 10. The north retreats, the south remembers. Retreat takes the long road. Warong paths fold back on themselves through mist and marsh. Wheel sink. Hooves learn humility. Camp fever writes its own orders. Along a narrow way, tall rider waits. Guan Yu, whose long beard keeps its promise to the wind. Once, Cao Cao treated him with honor. Now, the man from the north rides out with a handful of escorts and a memory that asks whether mercy can pay its debts without bankrupting tomorrow. The moment holds, then passes. Fate, whether you call it gratitude or wisdom or the stern arithmetic of future alliances, opens a space in the reeds and the column moves through. In Jiangdong, Zhou Yu secures the river's laughter. In Jingzhou, Liu Bei begins to plant his feet where a road to the west will later open. The night air smells of ash and rain. The maps breathe differently. You close season 3 with the sound of oars at rest and the rustle of bamboo in a wind that has finished teaching for now. Ahead, wait provinces that think they know who they belong to. A crown that will be set on a thoughtful head in Hanzhong, and a feather fan that, for a while yet, will keep time for armies. For the moment, let the river smooth its sleeve, and the lantern burn low. Breathe in, breathe out. The wars have learned your name, and you have learned theirs, and both of you agree to sleep. Here is a single, continuous, sleep-friendly script for Season 4, The Kingdoms Established. It moves in 10 even parts, softly titled so you can drop chapter markers. Second-person voice, calm tone, no graphic detail. Ready for text-to-speech. Part 1. Seeds take root in 3 lands. You travel a map that has decided to harden into borders. In the west, the river valleys of Yi Province lie quiet and green behind mountain gates. In the southeast, Jiangdong keeps watch over wide water. In the north, granaries stand under new laws. The war of great waves becomes a war of shorelines. People rebuild doors, write new surnames on old ledgers, and learn the rhythm of taxes under different flags. You breathe and feel the world try to hold itself still long enough to choose what it wants to be next. Part 2. Liu Bei enters the Riverlands. The road climbs into Sichuan. Switchbacks, bamboo groves, rain that feels like patience. Zhuge Liang and Fa Zheng set the chessboard. Pang Tong, the young phoenix, sketches short, bold lines between distant towns. Gates open, not to thunder, but to negotiations that arrive with warm tea. Liu Zhang, weighed down by the comfort of caution, yields more often than he fights. In Luo County and Mianzhu, you watch letters do the work spears used to claim. When Chengdu opens, it does so with sighs, not cries. The city receives Liu Bei as a guardian who has come late, but still come. The West becomes a house with doors that finally close and windows that finally face the sun. Part 3. Sun Quan locks Jiangdong. Downriver, Sun Quan sits among blue banners and patient tides. He strengthens embankments, stations fleets where currents favor home, and promotes men who understand water. Lu Su for diplomacy, and a younger mind named Lu Shun for the quiet art of choosing when not to fight. Markets in Jianye and Wuchang hum. Shipyards add ribs to the skeletons of future strategy. Jiangdong decides to live by its rivers, and the rivers agree to lend their strength. Part 4. The North under a single will. In Ye and Shu, Cao Cao measures the empire by grain and roads again. He trims rebellions like a gardener who knows where to cut and where to spare. Garrisons become schools for discipline. The banners of old rivals fade into neatly kept records, yet the mountains of Hanzhong are a hinge the map cannot ignore. There, high paths and narrow valleys teach both sides humility. Guangzhong makes a name the hills echo, and Xiaohu Yuan yields his place in history with a quiet thud of fate. By season's end, the North stands orderly, the West stands armed, and between them lies a door neither wishes to leave unguarded. Part 5. The flood at Fan. Autumn turns the Han River brown and strong. Guan Yu, tall and calm, long beard catching the breeze like a signal, lays siege to Fancheng. He opens dikes with a strategist's hand and lets water speak the language of siege. Yu Jin surrenders beneath a sky that cannot stop raining, and the campaign smells of wet earth and changed fortune. In camps up and down the road, men begin to say out loud what they have secretly hoped, that the house of Liu bears not only kindness, but consequence. Part 6. A turning in Jingzhou. Victory makes noise. Ambition hears it. While Guan Yu keeps his gaze north, Lu Meng, cloaked in feigned illness and genuine cleverness, sails a quiet plan downriver for Sun Quan. Lanterns are shaded, uniforms traded for plain cloaks, and checkpoints greet merchants who memorize the right smiles. Jingzhou, the hinge between west and east, turns softly, but it turns. When Guan Yu looks back, he sees his base dimming like a lantern in rain. The news arrives in pieces that fit too neatly to be accident. A hero's road narrows, and the map of hopes redraws itself without asking permission. Part 7. Ash on a household shrine. The river has many forks. The worst one is the choice between two good debts. Guan Yu's story closes where logistics and loyalty cross too tightly to pass side by side. The army that once walked behind him now walks past a place with his name on it and keeps its eyes low. In Chengdu, Liu Bei hears and stands long without speaking. An empty seat in a humble room says more than any messenger. Around the cities of Shu, people set out small plates and light small sticks of incense, and the smoke writes a question that can only be answered later. Part 8. The White Emperor's Resolve. Sorrow hardens into banners. Liu Bei puts on mourning black and then armor, and at Chengdu he takes the style of Emperor of Shu Han, not to decorate himself, but to declare what work must continue. He gathers allies appoints Zhuge Liang chancellor, and moves east to answer Jingzhou's loss with justice. Yet justice is a poor general in summer. On the march, Zhang Fei, fierce as ever, generous as ever, falls to treachery, cut from the cloth of fatigue. His spear stands lonely in the ground, and the camp learns how quiet a large absence can be. The army goes on because grief cannot steer. Part 9. Yiling burns without shouting. The river valleys of Shouting and Yiling grow hot. Bamboo cracks in the sun like small, polite thunder. Lu Xun watches Liu Bei extend camp after camp into the forested folds, and he does what good sailors do in storms, shortens sail and waits for the wind that will blow both ways. When it comes as fire walking along dry leaves and light boats. Paths of flame touch pavilion roofs like arguments that have finally found their words. Shu withdraws in good order for as long as order can be kept, then in decent disorder, then in memory. The retreat bends toward Baidi, White Emperor City, a cliff that overlooks not defeat, but the long work after defeats. Part 10. A feather fan takes the weight. In a quiet hall above the river, Liu Bei lies under light summer cloth and speaks to Zhuge Liang with the care of a craftsman handing over tools. He asks the chancellor to hold the realm together, to aid the young Liu Shan, as if helping a son across a stepping stone, to use power like a physician uses a needle only where the pain is. Outside, water turns its corners and keeps going. Inside, a ruler's breath shortens into advice, then into thanks, then into rest. When you step out beneath the eaves, the air smells of bamboo and promise. The West has lost a father and gained a steward. The South has proved its river wisdom. The North watches and waits as it always has. Season 4 closes with the feather, fan lifted, not to wave away heat, but to count the beats between seasons, and to begin that patient music the world will soon call the Northern Expeditions. Here's a single, continuous, sleep-friendly script for Season 5. The final campaigns. It flows in 10 even movements. Soft titles, spoken softly for chapter markers. Second-person voice, calm tone, and no sharp battle detail. Ready for text-to-speech. Part 1. The wooden ox rolls north. You stand on a plain where early light finds carts with curious legs and wheels, wooden oxen and flowing horses, inventions that turn grain into distance. Zhuge Liang walks beside the first train, feather fan quiet against his sleeve, speaking to quartermasters as if each sack of millet were a promise that must be kept. The banners of Shu lean toward the north. The air smells of pine and lamp oil. Letters have already gone ahead to the emperor, advice written like a father's hand on a young shoulder. And behind the letters come roads, bridges, depots, a way for courage to arrive on time. You listen to an army learning to move like a single, considerate thought. Part 2. Empty streets and a single song. In a small city of stone, Xicheng, the sound of sandals fades until the only footsteps left belong to you. Sima Yi approaches with caution, learned from long success. Dust lifts. Scouts signal. The horizon narrows. Upon the gate tower sits Zhuge Liang, robes light a kin across his knees. He plays a slow piece that makes the wind behave. Behind him, doors stand open, as if defeat had already unpacked its bags. Sima Yi studies the scene and decides that silent singing is more dangerous than drums. He turns away with a gesture that looks like patience and feels like respect. The gates close, the song ends, the army breathes again. You carry with you the lesson that sometimes the bravest noise is the one you do not make. Part 3. Jieting, where water chooses sides. A road runs into Jiting, and the map writes in small letters, "Hold the water." Masu, bright and untested, chooses hills over springs. Wang Ping counsels otherwise, a drumbeat of prudence under a green flag. Clouds gather and pass on. Zhang, who arrives from the north, with the quiet of a man who has walked this field in his head before. The camps on the height grow thirsty, lines loosen, a shout becomes many small disagreements with the ground. When the day ends, the pass no longer answers to Shu. In the tent that night, Zhuge Liang accepts mistakes as if they were his own shadow. Ma Su's fate is decided with sorrow that has no audience. A general learns that duty is sometimes the equal of tenderness, and neither wins without costing the other. Part 4. Roads that repeat themselves. The northern expeditions become a rhythm, up through the Qishan roads, into the cool scent of fur, across rivers bridged with discipline. Wudu and Yinping turn like small locks in a larger canal. Victories arrive modestly, without penance shouting. Sima Yi answers not with bravado, but with weather, delays, misdirections, a hand on the grain throat that keeps armies lean. Letters pass between camps like chess pieces, a remark about patience here, a reminder about the cost of haste there. You watch two minds refuse to meet in the loudest place, choosing instead to fight in ledgers and supply paths. The soldiers learn the strange pride of campaigns that end with everyone still standing. Part 5. Rains that do not choose a flag. In one season, the rains come early and teach roads to forget their shapes. Cloaks shine with wet. Cook fires pretend to be stars on the ground. You walk past bivouacs where men mend sandals and stories at the same time, where the nicest word for stalemate is rest. Sima Yi builds earthworks and waits out the calendar. Zhuge Liang answers with discipline as shelter, kitchens measured to the ladle, watches kept by men who know the value of a minute. When the skies lift, the lines have not moved far, but the armies have learned to be themselves. More exactly, Part 6. Wuzhang Plains, where time holds its breath. The camps spread along the Wei River, ordered like chapters. Archery yards, remount lines, store tents, the Chancellor's pavilion with its bamboo slips stacked in tidy patience. Sima Yi watches from across a broad meadow, his sons learning how to read a silent enemy. At dusk, messenger lamps blink like careful constellations. At dawn, farmers from nearby villages bring greens and gossip, and the gossip says that winter has been discussing its arrival with the hills. The wooden oxen still walk, so does the calendar. In the quiet center of the busy camp, Zhuge Liang leans over maps and coughs into a sleeve that refuses to make a fuss. Part 7. The fan grows still. News travels softly inside the command tent. The fever will not argue. The lamp is lowering itself with courtesy. Orders are written that pretend to be ordinary. Withdrawals measured to the drum. Flags to be left in view. A coach draped so that it seems to carry a thinking man, even after thought has gone to ground. In the last interview, Zhang Wei receives tasks like lit coals to be carried in cupped hands. Senior captains learn which bridges to keep and which to remove, as if by accident. When the final breath departs, the pavilion keeps its shape. The army steps backward with a grace that looks like wind. Across the meadow, Sima Yi suspects what the silence means and still declines to chase a legend into the dark. Behind the last cart, a stray feather touches mud and holds its outline longer than seems possible. Part 8. The Sima line tightens. In Luoyang, Cao Shuang favors display over depth. The avenues grow noisy with parades that mean to be policy. Sima Yi, gray-haired and careful, waits behind illness and then steps out at Gao Pingling like a man opening a door he built years earlier. Armories change their mind about who owns them. Gates remember different passwords. The realm of Wei becomes, in practice, a realm of Sima. After him come Sima Shi and Sima Zhao, sons who file the edges of what their father shaped. In Shu, Jiang Wei keeps the northern road warm with hope, marching and returning and marching, a needle sewing ambition to landscape. Each stitch holds, but the cloth does not yet become a flag. Part 9. Rivers change their names. The year turns to 263, and Wei sends 3 spears, where one would have done Zhonghui along the main roads, with discipline like a straight edge. Deng Ai, disappearing into mountains that maps call impossible. Zhuge Shu, to fill the spaces between. Snow watches the passes. Outposts blink in surprise. Deng Ai leads men over Yinping by goat paths and contrivance, skirting cliffs where even hawks reconsider. He comes down into Jiang Yu like a sentence that has skipped a line and still makes sense. In Chengdu, Liu Shan listens to counsel that counts the number of doors left to open and finds none that do not lead to needless sorrow. Surrender is given with ceremony that keeps dignity intact. Zhong Hui, entangled in ambitions with Jiang Wei's last calculations, sees his river split and turn back on itself. The West goes quiet in a way that makes people lower their voices voluntarily. Part 10. Rivers become one. In the southeast, Wu stretches its banners across Jiangdong and hopes that water, which has saved it so often, will save it again. But Jin, the new name for Wei, under Sima Yan, who will be Emperor Wu of Jin, gathers oars and patience. The campaign is a tide arriving on schedule. Sun Hao's court learns the sound of shoes in corridors that are not theirs. Wu Cheng, Jianye, Wu Cheng. Cities hear new passwords and answer them. Fleets bow to other admirals. The year is 280, and the maps choose one color where 3 had argued. People begin, cautiously, to trust that harvests will reach winter with their names still on them. The records write unification, the kitchens write enough. The roads rest a little. You stand on a hill above a large river, smoothing itself under a spring light. and think of a feather fan, now still, a green robe, folded and honored, a quiet oath under peach blossoms, 100 plans that did not fail so much as become history. The war has put down its pen. The land takes up a broom. You breathe with it, slow in, slow out, and set the lantern low.